everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back with the FIA manufacturers round number 3, driving at St. Croix, a B version in reverse I think it is. This is my first race in the manufacturer series, so my first test of Aston Martin. I was aware that Aston Martin is not very good tyre wear. The first race we didn't qualify very well at all. I think we were down in, one place from last place, so it was a bit of a learning curve. Next race we managed to a slightly better qualifying lap in. I think it was an 18.5, which was only 4 or 5 tenths off pole position, so definitely improved. Straight away off the start, managed to make a nice move past Cobra there in the other Aston Martin, so getting past Cobra and into P7, so a great start straight from the off, and putting myself up 1 position. And now the Aston Martin, so far my experience with it in the Group 4 car is it's not a bad car. It's good out of slow corners for traction, however it does have a tendency to understeer when you're getting on the initial power, which kind of makes you, if you watch through the corners, you'll see me, like, if you watch the accelerator inputs, it'll go down and up and then down again, because it feels like it's going to grip, and then as you put the fat power down, the power is really strong with this Group 4 car. It tends to understeer a bit, so you have to lift off and then get back on the power. But through the straights, one thing I'm really enjoying about this car is the ability to overtake. You can see, look at the speed difference down the straight past that Porsche. It's like it's not moving, and this is one thing I'm going to enjoy with this car. It should be entertaining for races because it's got the ability to get past other cars, as we've now got P5 in front of us, the Peugeot driver. Obviously that car very, very fast down the straights. And one thing I'm noticing recently is some of the front wheel drive cars and the 4-wheel drive cars seems to have had some sort of improvement in their tyre wear. Now we're going to show you something at the end of this video with regards to that I've checked after this. The Aston Martin is probably one of the worst cars now in Group 4 for tyre wear. However, I think I did a reasonably good job in this race at looking after the tyres. Obviously the first race was a learning curve. This race is all about just trying to get some solid points on the board. This is my first race in the manufacturers series, so it's just about getting some points on the board, just something as a base. We've got to get 4 good points, and then I think it's the best of 4 for this 10 round season. So I'm just picking the races that I want to do. Not sure I'm going to do both rounds on this Wednesday either. It's probably just going to be picking which one I want to do all the way through the season. But you can see there the drivers in front they built up a little bit of a gap through there. I think P5 had the slipstream of the cars in front. With the power of that Peugeot, has enabled them to get very close to them. We're just holding on at this point, just trying to keep it consistent. You can see there in the lead GTA Tigany doing very well in the TT Cup. TT Cup, probably a good car here, however, again, it's going to suffer with the tyre wear. We'll show you at the end of the race comparing the tyre wears between different cars, but the Aston Martin is a very heavy car. It really does use a lot of front tyre wear up, so it should be good when when it's at a track that doesn't destroy front tyres too much, because the rears stay reasonably well. So, and obviously if it's a track with a lot of straight line speed needed, it should be okay. But the problem with this track, another area which was an issue, was it's such a long track that when the tyres go, you've really got to just try and get round the lap. Obviously as we run a little bit wide, they're trying to push to get in the slipstream. You can see driving quite aggressively to see if I can just get into that slipstream, because I know with the power of this car, if I can get in that slipstream, it will drag me all the way along into that battle for P5. But so far, so good in this race. Everything seems to be going okay so far. As we come to the part of the track where the Aston Martin tends to be very, very strong at this part of the track, obviously with the power. This is where it tends to gain over a lot of other cars. As you can see in front, they're gaining. Obviously the Peugeot's managing to get the slipstream of some other very fast cars, so we're staying with them though at this point, so it's actually looking okay. We've got P7 very close behind us. You can see him in the wing mirror there, and you can see him on the bottom right hand corner in the replay camera, not too far off. We're kind of in the middle of this two different battles. We've got a group of cars behind and a group of cars in front, and we're just maintaining. At this point we were maintaining the same pace as P1. We were pretty much matching the times that were being set. I think it was staying around 4 seconds. Obviously starting from I think we started from P8. You start quite a bit further back straight away, but you can see they're fourth in P3. Obviously a very fast driver as well in the Mercedes. The Mercedes is probably the closest car in terms of ability at this track, although I think the Mercedes has better tyre wear than the Aston Martin. Obviously I've drove the Mercedes. It tends to have reasonably good tyre wear for a front engine car, whereas the Aston Martin, it really does chew up the tyres in the front end. But you can see taking these corners nice and safe at the moment. This is a track that I've not done too much. We've done it I think in one other FIA race in a Group 3 FIA season. I think it was the first exhibition season that we did when we were driving for Porsche, quite a few months back, that we did this track. I do like this layout, however it is one of them tracks that you really need to get in the rhythm of to start putting in the good lap times. You see the first race we did, we qualified over a second slower than what we did in the second race. So it was just about getting used to the track. Obviously, I've not really done much practice on it, so all I wanted from this race was just some solid points on the board, just to get me going with the Aston Martin season. Obviously, this season is just going to be it's a one season where we can change. I think we can start changing cars again after each season. It did say after this season we'll be able to change cars again, so that's quite interesting, depending on whether it's an official season or what car I'll pick. I'm not too sure yet, but you can see going through these fast corners, and that's where it's starting to suffer now. You can see that the front tyres are starting to take a lot of wear already. We've only done 2 laps, we're on lap 3 now, and then front tyres are starting to take a lot of wear, so that's where we're starting to lose out. However, again, this is where we're gaining. You can see actually in the mirror, we're actually starting to pull away from that battle behind us with the Cayman, and I think there's an SLS in there and a Corvette, but you can see we're just sitting in that middle, right in the middle of the 2 different battles. We're not able to get the slipstream of the cars in front, but we're not giving the slipstream to the cars behind us. So at the moment, things are looking reasonably good in P6 here now, and hopefully we can just try and maintain this all the way to the finish. We've got some very fast drivers in this race: Garassa, Force, Iwerbi, I think it is, BFR Devil, and GTA Tiznio. This is a very strong lobby. There were some big points up for grabs in this race. I think it was like 2.6 or might have even 2.7k points. As Force has an issue there. I think he got a penalty, a 3-second penalty. I'm not sure exactly why, but obviously he's going to lose a bit of time, and he drops down to P6, and that puts me up to P5, so he's now down to P7, sorry, obviously when he's getting back up to speed. So he's a few seconds behind now, but the Mercedes, obviously he's a very fast driver anyway, and obviously the Mercedes a little bit better on tyre, so he could come back into play later on in this race. But you can see the cars up ahead battling, and that Peugeot actually seemed reasonably good around this track. It was quite surprising. This is why I'm saying I'm convinced they've done something with the tyre wear on the front wheel drive cars, because we noticed it with some of the 4-wheel drive cars as well. They seem to have had an improvement with tyre wear. When I think it was a while ago in a stream that myself, Lightning, we were testing cars out, and I think he even said he was quite surprised at how well the 4-wheel drive Subaru did at the Nürburgring with the tyre wear on quite a high rate. So it does seem like they've made some adjustments. It could be also slightly lower rates of tyre wear that they're using, but they're still quite aggressive considering we were using racing medium tyres. But as we start lap 4 now, this is the strategy with this car. We had to pit on the end of this lap. There's no way we could do 5 laps when the car's heavy on fuel. You'll notice I'm doing a lot of short shifting as well. That's because this race was more of an advantage really to short shift and make sure that you don't need to put any fuel in at the pit stop. I mean, you could go really aggressive, but the Aston Martin's not too bad on acceleration in Group 4 car when you're short shifting. So I decided to do a lot of short, mid-range shifting, between 60 to 70% shifting in the Group 4 car, keeping reasonable speed. You can see we're actually starting to gain a little bit on the cars in front of this stage. We've actually closed that gap a bit going into the pit stop phase. I think they're battling away a little bit, which is helping myself out. And you can see that BFR Devil, obviously there in P2, is just sitting behind Tidgeny at the moment. I think he was just waiting around, maybe waiting to see if he could take the lead at some point. Obviously in a very strong car. I think he was in the Toyota 86, I think it was, so a very strong car at this track. But we're just trying to nurse these tyres this face, because obviously now we're going to have to do the longest stint on the second stint. So 5 laps are going to be needed to be done on the second stint after this stop, because when the car is lighter, obviously your tyres are going to last that little bit better. You can see this corner is very tricky. I tended to take that corner very easy. You can see not really risking anything, just trying to make sure I brake nice and early and hook it up. You did find that cars like the Aston Martin, the SLS, the Mustang that's in front of me there, had to brake a little bit early, and some of the other cars like the Toyota, which can really brake late into the corners and carry a lot of speed through them. But again, braking nice and early, hooking that up, getting on the power quite early there, and really pushing the limits there. You can see the understeer building up now. You can see that it's the right front tyre that is taking the majority of the tyre wear on this track. It's really starting to use up pretty much all its life that's left on this. I mean, I could have gone for another lap, but I think you'd lose far too much time, and it's generally the best way to do these races with long, when it's a long lap like this, it normally is a better strategy to go for the longer stint on your last stint when you have lower fuel. But you can see I've got a nice gap to the drivers behind. Obviously we're going to be going through to the longer stage though, so this is where the Aston Martin is going to really suffer on this second stint now, and I just need to try and look after the tyres as much as possible. As BFR Devil stays out for another lap, obviously his tyres are in better condition. You can see the fuel's pretty similar to everyone else. A lot of people do. We've got slightly more than some drivers, slightly less than others, but we're okay for fuel as we go in the pits. I think we're spot on what we needed. So as long as we keep with a bit of short shift, and I think I actually had a little bit more than what I needed, so it was possible to drive slightly more aggressive on this second stint now. As you can see there, we've come out the pits not too far behind P5 and 4. Now we've got the fresher tyres. It's all about just trying to put in some lap times to see if we can put some pressure on the drivers in front. We've got a little bit of a gap to fourth behind. It looks like he had done slightly better fuel saving than some of the other cars that were directly behind us. And we've got me against you, who is Pump on Q. I didn't know this at the time. There is when we live streamed this, I did get a little bit overreactive towards what was happening in this race, which we'll talk about as this goes on, and I did actually apologise on the live stream about that. But let's just watch now how this race is developing. As you can see there, obviously coming through to halfway distance in the race now, as we come to halfway round this lap, about near enough halfway on lap 5, which is halfway through the race. And we've managed to get ourselves in the slipstream of Garassa in that Mustang. And look at this, is where you can see the power difference between like a Cayman and the Aston Martins. I'm actually able to get into the slipstream and go for a move on the inside of that Mustang, which shuts the door on me quite aggressively there. I did actually have the car on the inside there. I think he might not have been aware that I was there, so I'm going to try and hang it around the outside now. Brake nice and early though, because we don't want to be braking around the outside of that off-cambered corner. It will just send you out wide and push you out wide, which you do not want because you have the rain on the left. As we have a little look down the left-hand side, now we're going to have a little look down the right. It's just a drag race now all the way up to this corner. We go back to the left-hand side and we're not really able to chuck the car. Are we going to go for a move here into this corner? I decided to back out of that. Not really worth throwing it up the inside there, as we brake a little bit late, which forces us to be a little bit slow on the power there. And this has now give the P7 and P8 the opportunity to get in my slipstream. Garassa now at this point seems to be holding me up a little bit. Whether he was in the slipstream before and it was helping him out, but now it seems like he is actually holding me up a little bit on this lap. So are we going to be able to keep this, keep this position with the two very fast cars coming behind us? I think they're going to be slightly better on tyres as they get through to the end of this race also. But you can see now picking up quite a big slipstream from Garassa, but going into the fast left-hand corner, not really an opportunity to make a move there. However, he makes a little bit of an error on the midpoint of the apex of that corner, and now we're very much in the slipstream. But we've got me against you in our slipstream. Are we going to be able to go for a move? I decided I need to go for this to try and give myself some sort of breathing space. You can see he's also going for the move. We're going to go on the inside and try and force Garassa as wide as possible. We take that inside line and manage to get that position done and up into P4. So in a very good position so far in this race. Actually making up 4 positions so far from P8 into P4. So things are going reasonably well, although we've got cars now very close behind us with very fast drivers with probably slightly better tyre wear. So this is going to be about just holding on as much as we can and see if we can fight them off and get ourselves to the end of this race in a reasonable position. Obviously, I just wanted solid points for this round. Obviously, we've not doing a single race in the Manufacturer Series up to this date, so this was my first test of the Aston Martin. Now you can see that the drivers up front, a bit of a gap developed. I think we're about 5-6 seconds behind at this point. Like I say, this wasn't not really some of my strongest tracks, as the Mercedes gets a slipstream on us, so I go defensive there, and he's going to have to go around the outside. Obviously, the Aston Martin is very strong, but he wasn't giving me a chance to move over to the right there. He was trying to force me to stay to the left. We brake nice and early, hold an inside line, and he gives us a little tap in the rear there, mid-apex. I had to hold that apex line, obviously, with the fact that it wouldn't give me the space on the right-hand side. And then we go into the braking, and we get hit and dive-bombed into the corner, which did make me a little bit wound up at this point. Obviously, it was a little bit aggressive. I think that was, a little bit of a tap. And this is where we started getting a little bit wound up. Obviously, it wasn't too bad, but it was a little bit of a dive into that corner from where they were. And now this is pretty much a 4-way battle for P4 at this point in the race. And obviously, I think that my tyres were probably going to be the worst out of all the cars around us. Maybe the Mustang's pretty similar in terms of its tyre wear compared to ours, but the Mercedes slightly better. And there were 2 Mercedes behind us, a Ford and ourselves, and a Corvette also getting involved with it. So Fonseca there getting involved with this battle for P4. So that's pretty much a 5-way battle for this. You can see how close this was coming into lap 6. So quite far into this race, we've done quite a few laps, and there's still 6 cars battling for this P4 position. You can see the P3's managed to get himself a little bit further ahead, very close to P2 actually. Obviously with the battling that we've been doing and contact, we've actually lost a little bit of time now to the top 3 runners, which is a shame. Obviously without the battling we would have been a bit closer, but I don't think we'd have been able to challenge for the lead because of the tyre wear issues with this Aston Martin. You see still doing the short shifting, just trying to save a bit of fuel for the last lap so that if I do have an opportunity to overtake, I can use quite a bit of revs now, as we've got me against you still behind us in our slipstream, holding on there, and a bit of a gap there between P5 and P6. You can see that's developed there. Garassa and Force obviously battling away, and that's enabled a bit of a gap to develop between the two different battles that are going on. But me against you putting a lot of pressure on. Midway through, a little tap again there. Midway on the apex, obviously the Aston Martin just cannot carry the same amount of speed as the SLS through some of the corners. Obviously SLS isn't the best handling car, but it's just got a little bit more in terms of mid-corner grip. It's a little bit lighter, I think. The Aston Martin does suffer, but however, this is where the Aston Martin is very strong. We're going to stay down the left-hand side. You can see, I was actually going to, I think I was going to let him go on the inside here now, but we accelerated, but it hasn't got the speed to go for that move. The SLS just hasn't got the straight line speed to get out. Once out of the slipstream, he hasn't got the power to make that move on the inside. As we go through this corner, trying to take a nice clean line through there. And I was going to go to the left there and let him back from the right, but he went down the left-hand side. Obviously not probably realising that. I think in the stream I was trying to let him pass, but because he was already there, not much I could do. So now at this point, a little bit of a gap developed again. You can see, give myself a little bit of breathing space, but I did actually want to let him through at that point when he was battling away there, because it probably would have made more sense to let him through and try and stick in his slipstream and give myself a cushion to the other drivers, because I know that my tyre wear is going to be getting worse as the laps go on, and I'm going to be on the threat to losing, up to 4 or 5 positions, because there's very close racing going on between P6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think the battle behind us has got multiple cars in it, so we're going to have to try and... I wanted to play it quite tactical, and at that point I did want to let him through, but then because I was in the inside, I didn't want to lose too much time by trying to let him go around the outside. And now we're just trying to hook these corners up, and if he gets in a position again to go for a move, I was going to actually just try and let him through at some point as we go into this left-hand corner, a corner that I really do enjoy. Such a fast-flowing corner. Got to get on the power nice and early, use the full width of the track, and work our way to the finishing line as we start lap 8. So just 2 more laps to go in this race. So far everything's going reasonably well. Are we going to be able to hold on to this position in this car though, with the tyre wear issues that the Aston Martin is going to have? It's going to be a real battle. You can see at the moment, obviously there's still a bit of tyre wear left in these tyres. We've got 2 laps to do. It's the unknown on lap 5, which is going to be where it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Are we going to be able to keep the lines without understeering wide off the track? That is going to be possibly where it might catch us out. As you can see, also the SLS seems to have a little bit of understeer mid-corner there behind us, but he's going to have a little look around the outside there. Is he going to be able to throw it around the outside? He's going to try and take that wide line to get on the power really early and give himself good exit speed. As he does that, we're going to stay right. Now this is where I said again, I think I was just going to let him go through, and I was going to try and get in his slipstream. You can see I stay all the way to the right, giving him plenty of space, and just trying to give myself the ability to get back into a slipstream. But again, because of the speed of the Aston Martin, I had to lift off a bit early there, just a brief little lift, and then brake down into 3rd gear and try and hold a very tight line and get back into the slipstream now. But however, me against you makes a mistake, hits the wall, so I go to the left to give him the inside and just try and hold a wide line so he can take it, but he squeezes me over and gives me squeezes me a little bit of contact. I wasn't going for an overtake and did get a bit wound up on the live stream, and then we went to try and go to the right hand side again, because we were going to try and just widen our line just so it gives us the ability to stick in the slipstream, but then he squeezes me onto the barrier on the right hand side, which again, it was winding me up in the stream, and again you can see I was getting squeezed a little bit, so I started to get a little bit annoyed and just went aggressive. I thought, well, we're going to race it then. I did want to sit in this slipstream and just try and hold on to this position. We have a massive moment coming out the corner and nearly lose control of the car. It wasn't too bad what happened to get with myself and Pumpunku, me against you. However, it was a little bit frustrating. You can see though, I got a bit frustrated and went for a dive into that corner. Tiny bit of contact. It probably was a bit aggressive, but I felt like it was giving back as good as what I was receiving. I was wound up at the stage because obviously I was trying to let him pass, but he was just squeezing me into the barrier. Maybe he wasn't aware that I was trying to just tuck into his slipstream on the corners. But now we've got Force behind us, one of my fellow esports drivers in my esports team, and you see there, I think he's actually going to boost us down the straight a little bit there and try and maybe overtake another point. I think he was boosting me because he had the other car on his other side and was trying to give himself some slipstream as we go into this left hand corner, and Pumpunku gets himself back past Force. So a real battle going on now for this final position on the final lap. This is getting very intense. I decided at this point we might as well just try and do our best to hold on to this, but just look at the understeer this Aston Martin has. A little bit of a nudge through the corner there pushes me off, so you can see why I was getting a little bit wound up, but maybe the move we made was the reason why he did that, which is fair enough. It was a bit aggressive for myself, but again I think it was just giving back as much as we were receiving from the Mercedes driver. But now we're just gonna have to try and hold on. This final lap was just about holding on to this P6. Now I was still happy in a way with getting P6 from this race. Not a track that I really have driven that much, and my first ever race in the Aston Martin, which I need to obviously practice more with, get more used to it, and try and improve my skills driving it. You know, it does, in general, it does take me a little bit of time to get used to cars and get used to the way they handle, but so far we've done a reasonably good job with this Aston Martin. You know, the tyre wear, if you have a little look at that front right hand tyre, it's completely dead. A lot more tyre wear on it than what we would have ever experienced with the Cayman. This is the race where you kind of wish you were still in the Cayman, but you can see Force goes a little bit wide there. They're going to go side by side now into this left hand corner, so I decided to just try and stick with them at this point, because if they have a battle and some sort of collision, I need to be there to take advantage. So you can see going into the braking, he goes defensive on the left hand side, then goes back over to the right hand side, then goes back over to the left hand side. Again, I thought that was a little bit naughty by Pomponcu, but it was reasonably fair. I think I was just overreacting a lot of what was going on. However, I do think that some of the moves were a bit aggressive. I think multiple moves like that in the braking zone were a little bit wrong, but still some great fun racing to watch. I think a lot of people enjoyed the racing that was going on the stream. It was quite interesting to be in a different type of car, a car that you've got to look after with its tyres all the way to the end. And you can see I've actually done a reasonably good job to put this Aston Martin into P6 and battling for some very strong points. You know, P4 is still possible as we come through to the final corner. I could see me against Hugo very early into that corner, so I tried to take a really wide line just in case there was contact between them. They're going to try and go around the outside. Force, I try and stay on the power as much as possible through there, but you've just got to be so cautious with the understeer with this car. Revving it out now, trying to get as much power out of the car as we can and go over the line and manage to come over in P6. So a good fun race, some close driving, some aggressive driving, some questionable driving, but again, I think it wasn't as bad as what I thought when we were live on stream. But what we're going to do now is actually show you what I was talking about with the tyre wear in terms of the difference. You can see my tyre wear there, look, that front tyre completely dead. We're going to go into Force, and you can see the Mercedes. Both the Mercedes have much better front tyres than the Aston Martin. Going to go to the Peugeot, and it had pretty similar tyre wear, but much better rears than the Aston Martin. So you can see the difference between them. We'll have a little look at the leaders now. You see as we go to that Peugeot again. As to the front tyres were pretty much similar to ours, but I think they were slightly better than the Aston Martin still. And then we go to the Audi TT Cup and compare it to myself. And again, it had better tyre wear on the front than the Aston Martin. So it really does show you that this Aston Martin does completely chew its tyres. It's worse than front-wheel drive cars. But then we have a little look at the Toyota and just look how overpowered that tyre wear is on that. Look at the difference between the Aston Martin and that Toyota. Like night and day. That's where you get the advantage from driving cars like the Toyota, and this is why I said, you know, this is why I used to say it when I was driving the Cayman. You could just drive the tyres for so much longer because they just look after it so much better. But that Aston Martin, I think, is quite severe with tyre wear, considering it's a front-engined rear-wheel drive car. I didn't expect it to be that bad, but it should be interesting to try and look after them tyres in some of these races with aggressive tyre wear. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this race. It was a good fun race to do. We're going to try and get the other FIA manufacturer race that we did up on the Monza in the Group 3, a very entertaining race with some really close racing with TRL Org. I always enjoy racing with TRL Org, very clean driver, so we're going to upload that as soon as possible. And we got two other public lobby races, very close racing to upload as well. So I hope you enjoy all the racing. I'm going to be back with more live streams soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I'll leave you with the outro. Thanks again. See you later, everyone.